Billerica Public Library's Book Buzz December publications. Our first genre this month is romance. How to Catch a Queen by Alyssa Cole. When Shanti weds the king of Nazar, her dream of becoming queen finally comes true. But it's nothing like she imagined. Shanti and her husband may share an immediate and powerful attraction, but her subjects see her as an outsider, and everything she was taught about being the perfect wife goes unbelievably wrong. A king must rule with an iron fist. Newly crowned King Senyu was born perfectly fitted for the gauntlet, even if he wishes he weren't. He agrees to take a wife as he's required of him, though he doesn't expect to actually fall in love. Even more vexing, his beguiling new queen seems to have the answers to his country's problems, except no one will listen to her. By day, they lead separate lives. By night, she wears the crown, and he bows to her demands in the matters of politics and passion. When turmoil erupts in their kingdom and their marriage, Shanti goes on the run, and Senyu must learn whether he has what it takes both to lead his people and to catch his queen. Fairy Godmothers, Inc. by Sarah Anna Dewild. Lucky Fukiki's first name is a cosmic joke. Her luck is so bad, even the number 7 steers clear of her. But when her adorable godmothers ask for a favor, Lucky can't say no. After all, it's just a little one to save the world's magic. Lucky can already feel the bad juju waiting to strike, and her mission is even worse than she imagined to promote Ever After as a wedding destination by faking a marriage to her first love and longtime ex, Ransom Payne. He of the embarrassing incident that neither of them will ever live down. Or all kinds of wonderful? Ransom Payne has spent years building an impressive new reputation for himself, and now his godmothers want him to pretend to wed the one girl he liked most to forget. Sure, weddings and ever after could be a huge boon for his chocolate business, but risking more up close and personal time with Lucky? Considering the stakes, it's a curse he'll have to bear, at the risk of being humiliated or perhaps bewitched. Our second genre is fantasy. The King of the Rising by Kaysen Callender. A revolution has swept through the islands of Hans Lowleak, and former slave Lauren has been chosen to lead the survivors in a bid to free the islands forever. But the rebels are running out of food, weapons, and options, and as the Fern inch closer to reclaiming Hans Lowleak with every battle, Lauren is faced with a choice that could shift the course of the revolution in their favor or doom it to failure. The Dark Archive by Genevieve Cogman. Irene is teaching her new assistant the fundamentals of a librarian's job and finding that training a young fae is more difficult than she expected. But when they're targets of kidnapping and assassination attempts, she decides that learning by doing is the only option they have left. In order to protect themselves, Irene and her friends must do what they do best: search for information to defeat the overwhelming threat they face and identify their unseen enemy. To do that, Irene will have to delve deeper into her own history than she ever has before and face an ancient foe and uncover secrets that will change her life in the course of the library forever. Jolene by Mercedes Lackey. Anna Mae Jones is the daughter of a coal miner, but a sickly constitution has kept her confined to the house for most of her life. Hoping to improve her daughter's health and lessen the burden on their family, Anna's mother sends her to live with her Aunt Ginny, a witchy woman and an elemental master, in the hollow outside of Ducktown. As she settles into her new life, Anna learns new skills at Aunt Jenny's side and discovers that she, too, has a gift for elemental magic that Jenny calls the Glory. She also receives lessons from a mysterious and bewitching woman named Jolene, who assures her that with time, Anna could become even more powerful than her aunt. But with Anna's increasing power comes increasing notice. Billy McDarren, the foreman of Ducktown Mine, begins to take an interest in Anna and her abilities. even though Anna has already fallen in love with a young man with a talent for stone carving. If she wants to preserve the life she has come to love, Anna must use her newfound powers to oppose the foreman and protect those around her. Our third genre is mystery and suspense. The Lies You Told by Harriet Tice. In the playground, it's the law of the jungle, but at the school gate, there are no rules at all. When Sadie Roper moves back to London, she's determined to pick up the pieces of her shattered life. First, she needs to get her daughter settled into a new school, one of the most exclusive in the city. Next, she's going to get back the high-flying criminal barrister career she sacrificed for her marriage 10 years earlier. But nothing goes quite as planned. The school is not very welcoming newcomers, her daughter hasn't made any friends yet, and the other mothers are fiercely competitive as their children. Sadie immediately finds herself on the outside as she navigates the fraught politics of the school gate. But the tides start to turn as Sadie begins to work on a scandalous, high profile case that's the perfect opportunity to prove herself again, even though a dangerous flirtation threatens to cloud her professional judgment. And when Lisa, queen of the school moms, befriends Sadie and draws her into the heart of the world from which she was previously excluded, soon Sadie and her family start to thrive. But does this close new friendship prevent her from seeing the truth? Sadie may be keeping her friends close, but what she doesn't know is that her enemies are closer still. The Wrong Family by Taryn Fisher. Have you ever been wrong about someone? Juno was wrong about Winnie Crouch. Before moving in with the Crouch family, Juno thought Winnie and her husband Nigel had the perfect marriage, the perfect son, and the perfect life. Only now that she's living in their beautiful house, she sees the cracks and the crumbling facade are too deep to ignore. Still, she isn't one to judge. After her grim diagnosis, the retired therapist simply wants a place to live out the rest of her days in peace. But that peace is shattered the day Juno overhears a chilling conversation between Winnie and Nigel. She shouldn't get involved. She really shouldn't. But this could be her chance to make a few things right. Because if you thought Juno didn't have secrets of her own, then you were wrong about her, too. Cold Wind by Paige Shelton. Beth Rivers is still in Alaska. The unidentified man who kidnapped her in her home of St. Louis hasn't been found yet, so she's not ready to go back. But as October comes to a close, Benedict, Alaska is still feeling more and more like her new home. Beth has been working on herself. She's managed to get back to writing, and she's enjoying these beautiful months between summer and winter in Alaska. Then everything in Benedict changes after a mudslide exposes a world that has been hidden for years. Two mud-covered silent girls appear, and a secret trapper's house is found in the woods. The biggest surprise, though, is the dead and frozen woman's body in the trapper's shed. No one knows who she is, but the man who runs the mercantile, Randy, seems to be in the middle of all the mysteries. Unable to escape her journalistic roots, Beth is determined to answer the questions that keep arising. Are the mysterious girls and the frozen body connected? Can Randy possibly be involved? And most importantly, can she solve this mystery before the cold wind sweeping over the town and the townspeople descends for good? Eddie's Boy by Thomas Perry. Michael Schaefer is a retired American businessman living peacefully in England with his aristocratic wife, but her annual summer party brings strangers into their house, and with them an attempt on Michael's life. He is immediately thrust into action, luring his lethal pursuers to Australia before venturing into the lion's den, the States, to figure out why the mafia is after him again and how to stop them. Eddie's voice jumps between Michael's current predicament and the past, between the skill set he now ruthlessly and successfully employs and the training that made him what he is. We glimpse the days before he became the butcher's boy, the highly skilled mob hitman who pulled a slaughter job on some double-crossing clients and started a mob war, to his childhood spent apprenticed to Eddie, a seasoned hired assassin. And we watch him pit two prominent mafia families against each other to eliminate his enemies one by one. He's meticulous in his approach, using his senior contact in the Organized Crime Division of the Justice Department for information, without ever allowing her to get too close to his trail. But will he be able to escape this new wave of young contract killers, or will the years finally catch up to him? Marion Lane and the Midnight Murder by T. L. Willberg. Late one night in April 1958, a filing assistant at Miss Bickford's receives a letter of warning detailing a name, a time, and a place. She goes to investigate but finds the room empty. At the stroke of midnight, she is murdered by a killer she can't see. Her death, the only sign she wasn't alone. It becomes chillingly clear that the person responsible must also work for Miss Bickford's, making everyone a suspect. Marion Lane, a first-year inquirer in training, finds herself drawn even deeper into the investigation. When her friend and colleague is framed for the crime, to clear his name, she must sort through the hidden alliances at Miss Bickford's and secrets dating back to World War II. Shed No Tears by Kaz Freya. 4 victims, killer caught, case closed. Or is it? Growing up in a London family with ties to organized crime, Detective Constable Kate Kinsella knows the criminal world better than most cops do. As a member of the city's Metropolitan Police, she's made efforts to distinguish herself from her relatives. But leading an upstanding life isn't always easy, and Kat has come close to crossing the line. In fact, she keeps well hidden from her superiors. Working their latest case, Kat and her partner Luigi discover a connection to a notorious killer, serial killer Christopher Masters, who abducted and killed several women in 2012. Though the cops eventually apprehended him, his final victim, Holly Kemp, was never found, and he never confessed to her murder, despite the solid eyewitness testimony against him. Now, 6 years later, the discovery of Holly's remains near Cambridge seemed to be the definitive proof needed to close the case. Still, a few key items of evidence don't quite line up. As Kate and Fennell look closer, they find discrepancies that raise troubling questions. But someone will do anything to keep past secrets hidden. And as they inch closer to the truth, they may be putting themselves in jeopardy. The Cipher by Isabella Maldonado. To a cunning serial killer, she was the one that got away until now. FBI Special Agent Nina Guerrera escaped a serial killer's trap at 16. Years later, when she jumped in a Virginia park, a video of the attack goes viral. Legions of new fans are not the only one impressed with her fighting skills. The man who abducted her 11 years ago is watching. Determined to reclaim his lost prize, he commits a grisly murder designed to pull her into the investigation. But his games are just beginning, and he's using the internet to invite the public to play along. His coded riddles may have made him a deprived social media superstar and a cyber ghost dubbed the Cipher, but to Nina, he's a monster who preys on the vulnerable. Partner with the FBI's preeminent mind hunter, Dr. Jeffrey Raid, who is haunted by his own past, Nina tracks the predator across the country, clue by clue, victim by victim. Nina races to stop a deadly killer while the world watches. The War Widow by Tara Moss. Sydney, 1946. The war correspondent Billy Walker is happy to finally be home. For her, the heady post-war days are tarnished by the loss of her father and the disappearance in Europe of her husband Jack. To make matters worse, now that the war is over, the newspapers are sidelining her reporting talents for jobs for returning soldiers. But Billy is a survivor, and she's determined to take control of her own future. So she reopens her late father's business, a private investigation agency, and slowly the women of Sydney come knocking. At first, Billy's bread and butter is tailing cheating husbands. Then a young man, the son of European immigrants, goes missing, and Billy finds herself on a dangerous new trail that will lead up to the highest levels of Sydney society and down into its underworld. What is the young man's connection to an exclusive dance club in a high-class auction house? When the people Billy questions about the young man start to turn up dead, Billy is thrown into the path of Detective Inspector Hank Cooper. Will he take her seriously or will he just get in her way? As the danger mounts and Billy realizes that much more than one young man's life is at stake, it becomes clear that though the war was won, it is far from over. Wrong Alibi by Christina Dodd. 18-year-old Evelyn Jones lands a job in small town Alaska, working for a man in his isolated mountain home. But her bright hopes for the future are shattered when Donald White disappears, leaving her to face charges of theft, embezzlement, and a brutal double murder. Her protests of innocence count for nothing. Convicted, she faces life in prison until fate sends her on the run. Evie's escape leaves her scarred and in hiding, isolated from her family, working under an alias at a wilderness camp. Bent on justice, intent on recovering her life, she searches for the killer who slaughters without remorse. At last, the day comes. Donald White has returned. Evie emerges from hiding. The fugitive becomes the hunter. But in her mind, she hears the whispers of other forces at work. Now, Evelyn must untangle the threads of evidence before she is once again found with blood on her hands, the blood of her own family. We Hear Voices by Evie Green. Kids have imaginary friends. Rachel knows this. So when her young son Billy miraculously recovers from a horrible flu that has proven fatal for many, she thinks nothing of Delphi, his new invisible friend. After all, her family is healthy and that's all that matters. But soon, Delphi is telling Billy what to do, and the boy is acting up, lashing out in ways he has never has before. As Delphi's influence is growing stronger and more sinister by the day, and the rising tensions threaten to tear Rachel's family apart, she clings to one purpose: to protect her children at any cost, even from themselves. The Blade Between by Sam J. Miller. Ronan promised himself he'd never return to Hudson. The sleepy upstate town was no place for a restless gay photographer. But his father is ill, and New York City's distractions have become too much for him. He hopes that a quick visit will help him recharge. Ronan reconnects with two friends from high school, Dom, his first love, and Dom's wife, Adela. The three former misfits mourn what their town has become, overrun by corporate interest. With friends and neighbors getting evicted en masse and an election coming up, Ronan and Adela craft a plan to rattle the newcomers and expose their true motives. But in doing so, they unleash something far more mysterious and uncontainable. Hudson has a rich, proud history, and it turns it out. The real estate developers aren't the only forces threatening its well being. The spirits undergirding this once thriving industrial town are enraged. Ronan's hijinks have overlapped with the bubbling up of heat and violence among friends and neighbors, and everything is spiraling out of control. Roman must summon the very best of himself to shed his own demons to save the city he once loathed. Our last genre is nonfiction. The Last Days of John Lennon by James Patterson. With the Beatles, John Lennon surpasses his youthful dreams, achieving a level of superstardom and defies classification. We were the best bloody band there was, he says. There was nobody to touch us. Nobody except the original Nowhere Man, Mark David Chapman. Chapman once worshipped his idols from afar, but now harbors grudges against those, like Lennon, who he feels betrayed him. He's convinced Lennon has misled his fans with his message of hope and peace, and Chapman's not staying away any longer. By the summer of 1980, Lennon is recording new music for the first time in years, energized and ready for it to be just like starting over. He can't wait to show the world what he will do. Neither can Chapman, who quits his security job, boards a flight to New York, a handgun and bullets stowed in his luggage. It's Never Too Late by Katie Gifford. When Katie Lee Gifford stepped down as co-host of the fourth hour of the Today Show with Hoda, you might have thought her best days were behind her. It turns out she was just getting started. As Kathy Lee says, I'm not retiring, I'm refiring. Taking us from her Chesapeake Bay childhood when she first heard God's calling to her skyrocketing fame with Regis to her decision to leave television for Nashville, Kathy Lee inspires us to pursue what really matters because it's never too late to forgive, to dance the cha-cha, or to make a difference in the world. God placed his dreams in your heart for a reason, and like Kathy Lee, you might just discover that the best is yet to come. Whether you're an empty nester, newly single, navigating a career change, or just eager for any change, Kathy Lee helps you hear God's loving calling because it's never too late to begin again, make sparks fly, leave a good thing, have a party, change the ending, then change it again. Is it time for you to rewrite your story, unearth your hidden passions, and live with a renewed purpose? It's never too late. The Book of Moods by Lauren Martin. 5 years ago, Laura Martin was sure something was wrong with her. She had a good job in New York, an apartment in Brooklyn, and a boyfriend. Yet every day she wrestled with feelings of inferiority, anxiety, irritability. It wasn't until a chance encounter with a charming, successful stranger who revealed that she also felt these things that Lauren set out to better understand the hold that these moods had on her, how she could change them, and begin to blog about the wisdom she uncovered. It quickly exploded into an international online community of women who felt like she did, lost, depressed, moody, and desirous of a change. Mediocre by Lajuma Ullah. What happens to a country that tells generation after generation of white men that they deserve power? What happens when success is defined by the status over women and people of color instead of by actual accomplishments? Through the last 150 years of American history, from the post Reconstruction South and the mythic stories of cowboys in the West to the present day controversy over NFL protests and the backlash against the rise of women in politics. Ujjal exposes the devastating consequences of white male supremacy on women, people of color, and white men themselves.